What if the story of human civilization is not as straightforward as we have always believed? For generations, we have been presented with a clear, linear progression from early hunter-gatherers to the first agricultural society, then to the rise of cities, writing, and the great empires we recognize. It is a comforting narrative, one that speaks of a steady, upward climb of human ingenuity, each era building predictably upon the last. We are taught that the path from primitive tools to complex technology was a single, unbroken line, stretching forward from simple beginnings to our intricate modern world. This established understanding paints a picture of humanity slowly, painstakingly, accumulating knowledge and skill over millennia, culminating in our present era of unprecedented advancement. Yet when we look closer, beneath the polished surface of accepted history, we find whispers, fragments that refuse to fit, objects and structures that seem to emerge from the wrong time, carrying knowledge or exhibiting skills that conventional timelines insist were impossible for their era. These are not mere curiosities. They are anomalies, defiant echoes from a past we thought we understood. They are the out-of-place artifacts, or parts, and their very existence challenges the foundational beliefs of archaeology and history itself. They stand as silent witnesses, disrupting the tidy categories we have constructed and forcing us to confront a more complicated, perhaps even more wondrous, truth about our ancient predecessors. Imagine confronting an object whose craftsmanship demands a level of engineering centuries ahead of its supposed origin. Consider the perplexity of finding a sophisticated technological understanding that should not have been conceived until millennia later. Yet there it is, a tangible reality. These are not easily dismissed as aberrations. They are tangible paradoxes, physical questions embedded in the earth, forcing us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the origins of human capability and the timeline of our greatest achievements. They suggest that the story of humanity is far more complex, perhaps even cyclical, with forgotten peaks of ingenuity hidden within the long stretches of what we call prehistory. The very fabric of our historical assumptions begins to fray under the weight of these inexplicable survivals. The unsettling nature of these artifacts lies not just in their existence, but in the profound questions they raise. If ancient peoples, who we are told were still grappling with basic survival and the most rudimentary tools, possessed the knowledge to create such marvels, what else have we overlooked? What other chapters of human innovation have been lost to the sands of time or buried beneath layers of sediment and historical amnesia? Our traditional timeline, so neatly organized into eras of ascending progress, begins to feel less like an accurate map and more like a selective drawing, omitting vast, uncharted territories of human experience, perhaps even entire epochs of advanced civilization. Consider the implications. If sophisticated techniques in metallurgy or astronomy or even advanced mechanics were understood in ages we label as primitive, then our entire understanding of human development might be fundamentally flawed. We assume a gradual, consistent evolution of knowledge, a slow accumulation of wisdom that brings us to the present day, a continuous upward trajectory. But what if that journey was interrupted by immense forces or forgotten events? What if pockets of advanced understanding flared brilliantly, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible, only to be extinguished by forgotten catastrophes or the slow erosion of time, leaving behind only these puzzling fragments for us to discover? The idea that human achievement is not a perpetually ascending curve, but a series of intermittent surges and declines, is a difficult one to reconcile with our modern perception of progress. The silence that stretches between these anomalous discoveries and the accepted historical timeline is profound, almost deafening. We find an object seemingly plucked from the future and placed in the distant past, and then we are told there is no context, no preceding development, no explanation for its isolated brilliance. This absence creates a void, a nagging question that mainstream narratives struggle to answer without resorting to convenient dismissals, often labeling such finds as anachronisms or misinterpretations. Yet, the objects persist, tangible and undeniable, waiting patiently for us to acknowledge the stories they silently tell, stories that challenge the very structure of our historical understanding. They are the quiet challenges to a history too comfortably settled. These aren't isolated incidents or easily explained flukes, confined to a single culture or brief period. They are a pattern, a recurring theme across different cultures and continents, spanning vast gulfs of time and geography. They range from precision-cut stones in monumental structures built by societies supposedly lacking metal tools and advanced engineering, to intricate mechanisms that mirror the complexities of devices not reinvented until the industrial age. Each discovery, meticulously unearthed and rigorously studied, adds another thread to a tapestry of doubt, fraying the edges of our historical certainty. They whisper of a shared past that defies easy categorization. What if our ancestors were not merely simple farmers or unlettered tribes, forever bound by rudimentary technology, but were capable of complex thought, advanced engineering, and deep scientific understanding far earlier than we dare to imagine? The out-of-place artifacts compel us to confront this possibility, to shed preconceived notions. They hint at a grander, more sophisticated past, one where human ingenuity may have reached astonishing heights, only to be largely forgotten or erased by forces we are only now beginning to comprehend. They suggest that the human story is not a race that started at the same line and ran continuously, but perhaps a relay with torchbearers who sometimes drop the flame, forcing later generations to painstakingly rekindle it from embers. This initial questioning of ancient capabilities is not meant to undermine genuine scientific inquiry, but to broaden its scope, to invite a more expansive view of the past. It is an invitation to humility, a recognition that the past is a vast, largely unexplored ocean, and we have only charted a small portion of its surface, often with maps drawn from limited observations. The anomalies are signals from the deep, beckoning us to dive beneath the familiar currents and explore the hidden depths of human achievement. They challenge us to look beyond the textbooks and consider that perhaps some ancient minds were far more similar to our own than we currently allow, capable of astonishing feats of intellect and craftsmanship. The very term out of place implies a correct place for everything in history. But who defines that place, and what if the framework itself is incomplete, too narrow to contain the full spectrum of human experience? What if the conventional understanding is a comfortable but ultimately limiting lens through which we view the past, filtering out that which does not conform? These artifacts demand a fundamental re-evaluation, a willingness to entertain possibilities that lie outside the established intellectual boundaries. They are the cracks in the historical facade through which we glimpse another reality, one where human creativity knew fewer bounds and appeared in forms we have yet to fully comprehend, leaving us with a profound sense of wonder and intellectual challenge. For too long, these whispers from forgotten eras have been treated as mere curiosities, relegated to the footnotes of history or explained away as unproven theories, outliers that do not fit the established order. But their collective weight is growing, making it increasingly difficult to ignore the profound implications they carry. They force us to ask, could there have been civilizations, perhaps even multiple iterations, that reached levels of complexity and technical prowess that were then lost? Could our own understanding of our journey from simple to sophisticated be incomplete, missing crucial chapters where ingenuity flourished and then faded, only to be reborn? It is a question that gnaws at the edges of our certainty, suggesting that the human narrative is far richer and more convoluted than we have been taught. This documentary will embark on a journey into these profound questions, exploring the shadows cast by these enigmatic objects. We will examine the most compelling of these unexplained artifacts, not as isolated puzzles, but as interconnected pieces of a larger lost narrative, each one a testament to an ingenuity we struggle to place. We will challenge the comfortable assumptions that have long governed our perception of antiquity and open our minds to the astonishing capabilities that may have existed long before written records began. The stage is set for a deeper exploration, one that seeks to unveil the hidden layers of human ingenuity and rewrite the story of our shared past. The objects are real, their implications are immense, and the silence of history is beginning to yield its secrets. It is time to listen to what the anomalies whisper from across the vast expanse of time. From the faint whispers of anomalies, we turn now to the more resonant echoes of advanced minds, fragments of ingenuity that speak not only of surprising skill, but of a knowledge seemingly isolated in time. These are the mechanical marvels and global cartographies that refuse to fit neatly into the linear progression of human history, challenging our understanding of what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. They suggest not just isolated genius, but possibly a lost lineage of technological understanding. Among the most compelling of these enigmas is the Antikythera mechanism, a discovery that rewrote the very timeline of technology. Unearthed by sponge divers in 1900 from a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, it initially appeared to be little more than a corroded lump of bronze and wood. But beneath the incrustations of millennia, a device of astounding complexity slowly revealed itself. This was no simple navigational tool or decorative object. It was an intricate assembly of interlocking gears and dials, a sophisticated mechanical computer designed to track celestial movements with astonishing precision. Dating back to roughly 100 BCE, the Antikythera mechanism is capable of predicting astronomical phenomena, including the positions of the sun, moon, and perhaps even the planets, as well as eclipses, lunar phases, and important Greek festivals. Its differential gearing, a hallmark of advanced mechanical engineering, would not be seen again in any known human invention for over 1,000 years, appearing only in medieval European clockwork. How could such a device, a marvel of miniaturization and precision, exist in a period when our history books tell us mechanical science was in its infancy? Its existence poses a profound question. Was this the singular brainchild of an unparalleled genius, or a surviving fragment of a much broader, sophisticated mechanical tradition now lost to us? The mechanism stands alone in the archaeological record, a ghost of forgotten ingenuity, suggesting a past far more technologically rich than we have dared to imagine. Its isolation is as startling as its complexity, for there are no known precursors, no evolutionary steps leading up to its creation, and no discernible successors. It simply appears, fully formed, a silent challenge to our assumptions about ancient Greek capabilities. Across continents and millennia, another perplexing artifact surfaces, hinting at a grasp of principles we attribute firmly to the modern era. In the dusty plains of ancient Mesopotamia, a curious object known as the Baghdad Battery was uncovered in the 1930s, discovered near Kujut Rabu, a village southeast of Baghdad. This unassuming clay jar, approximately 14 cm tall, contained a copper cylinder, which in turn encased an iron rod. Crucially, the top of the jar was sealed with bitumen, a natural asphalt holding the elements in place. Experiments with replicas have shown that when filled with an acidic electrolyte like grape juice or vinegar, this assembly functions as a galvanic cell capable of generating a small electric current. Dating to the Parthian period, roughly between 250 BCE and 250 CE, the Baghdad Battery suggests a practical understanding of electrochemistry more than 2 millennia before Alessandro Volta's groundbreaking work in 1800. What purpose could such a device have served? Mainstream archaeology often dismisses it as a container for scrolls or a simple storage jar, yet the specific arrangement of dissimilar metals suspended in an acidic environment points directly to electrical generation. Was it used for electroplating small objects with gold or silver, a technique that would have imbued treasures with a radiant sheen? or perhaps for medicinal purposes, administering mild electric shocks as an ancient form of pain relief or therapy. The exact application remains a mystery, but the undeniable potential for generating electricity pushes the boundaries of what we accept about ancient Mesopotamian science. It is a flicker of ancient power, a whisper of a forgotten science, that asks us to reconsider the breadth of human knowledge long before the Industrial Age. The Baghdad battery, much like the Antikythera mechanism, does not fit. It stands as an almost impossible question carved into clay and copper. Moving from the intricacies of ancient mechanics and electrochemistry, our gaze expands to the very shape of the world itself, as depicted in ancient cartography. Some of the most startling anomalies are found in Old World maps, documents that seem to portray lands that should have been unknown and conditions that should not have existed for thousands of years. The Piri Reis map, compiled in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral of the same name, is perhaps the most famous of these cartographic enigmas. On the face of it, the map accurately depicts the coastlines of Europe, North Africa, and the Americas with surprising detail for its time, predating many European voyages of discovery. However, its most perplexing feature lies in its southern portion. Here, the map appears to show a landmass strikingly similar to the coastline of Antarctica. Even more astonishing, this coastline is depicted free of ice, with recognizable geographical features such as rivers and mountain ranges. Official history tells us Antarctica was not even sighted until 1820, and its true ice-covered coastline was not accurately mapped until the 20th century using seismic surveys. So how could a 16th century map include such a detailed, ice-free depiction of a continent not officially discovered for centuries, and existing in a state it has not been in for at least 6,000 to 12,000 years? Piri Reis himself stated his map was compiled from many older sources, some of which were ancient charts. If these older sources genuinely depicted an ice-free Antarctica, it implies the existence of a highly advanced, global seafaring civilization capable of extensive exploration and precise cartography during the last ice age, a time when conventional history places humanity as scattered hunter-gatherers. The Piri Reis map is not an isolated incident. The Orontes Phineas map of 1531, for instance, also clearly portrays an ice-free Antarctic continent, complete with mountain ranges and rivers that correspond with modern seismic data showing the topography beneath the ice sheet. Then there is the Boache map of 1737, which offers an even more precise rendering of the subglacial landmass, again showing an Antarctica without its massive ice cap. These maps, appearing centuries before modern technology could possibly confirm their details, present a profound challenge to our understanding of ancient geographical knowledge. They hint at a global navigational capability and cartographic expertise that defies all conventional timelines, suggesting that an advanced understanding of the world's geography was inherited from a civilization that explored and mapped our planet during a geological epoch vastly different from our own. These cartographic ghosts suggest a world of interconnected, maritime peoples long before the familiar narratives of Phoenician or Greek navigation. Beyond maps and mechanisms, some artifacts reveal a mastery over materials that should simply not have been possible. Advanced metallurgical findings occasionally surface, showcasing alloys and manufacturing techniques far beyond their supposed eras. While many such claims are controversial, certain instances raise legitimate questions about lost knowledge in materials science. Consider the legendary Damascus steel, a material renowned for its exceptional strength and sharpness, whose manufacturing secrets were lost to history by the 18th century. Modern science has only recently begun to unravel the complex microstructures, including carbon nanotubes, that gave this ancient steel its legendary properties. Was this a unique innovation or a forgotten method from a deeper past? Then there are the sophisticated metalworking techniques found in ancient South America, particularly among pre-Columbian cultures. The mochi of Peru, for example, developed intricate methods for working gold and silver, creating complex alloys and employing techniques like depletion gilding to create the illusion of solid gold. While impressive, perhaps more telling is the evidence of platinum working in Ecuador, dating back to pre-Inca times. Platinum has an extremely high melting point, over 1700 dulciter, making it incredibly difficult to work without modern smelting equipment. Yet ancient artisans somehow managed to fuse and manipulate this refractory metal, long before such metallurgy was thought to exist. These aren't just decorative flourishes. They demonstrate a deep empirical understanding of material properties and processes that required intense heat, precise control, and a wealth of accumulated knowledge. They represent a silent alchemy, secrets held in metal that challenge the progression of metallurgical skill. How did these societies develop such specific high-level knowledge only for it to seemingly vanish, leaving no clear lineage or explanation? Perhaps the most visually stunning and geographically distant example of inexplicable precision and scale in construction is found at Pumapunku, a part of the vast Tiwanaku complex in the Bolivian highlands, near Lake Titicaca. The ruins of Pumapunku are not merely old, they are bewildering. Here, massive blocks of stone, many weighing over 100 tons, lie scattered, some cut with a level of precision that rivals modern laser technology. The surfaces are perfectly flat, the edges razor-sharp, and the angles so exact that they create intricate interlocking joints, almost like a giant, impossible jigsaw puzzle, all without the use of mortar. The most famous of these are the H-shaped blocks, intricately carved with geometric patterns, uniform in their dimensions, and designed to fit together with staggering accuracy. The material itself, andesite and diorite, is incredibly hard, requiring tools far more sophisticated than the simple stone and copper implements attributed to the Tiwanaku people around 1000 CE. Moving these megalithic stones across vast distances, shaping them with such precision, and then assembling them into a complex structure without the aid of metal tools, draft animals, or the wheel, which was unknown in the Americas at that time, presents an engineering riddle that defies conventional explanation. Mainstream archaeology struggles to explain the methodology behind Pumapunku's construction, often resorting to theories of laborious manual shaping using rudimentary tools. However, the sheer scale, the repetitive precision, and the hardness of the stone imply a technology or a technique that has been utterly forgotten. It is a symphony in stone, an architectural impossibility that whispers of a lost mastery of engineering and construction. How could such a monument, exhibiting such advanced design principles, exist without any clear evidence of the technological infrastructure or development that should precede it? These artifacts, the Antikythera mechanism, the Baghdad battery, the ancient world maps, the subtle but profound metallurgical feats, and the impossible precision of Pumapunku are not mere curiosities. They are isolated instances of seemingly advanced technological knowledge, appearing as sudden bursts of innovation that then fade from the historical record, leaving no discernible path of development or influence. They are fragments of a different kind of history, one where the advancement of human ingenuity was not a steady, upward climb, but perhaps a cyclical pattern, with peaks of achievement followed by valleys of forgotten knowledge. Each of these objects stands as a silent challenge to the neat, linear narrative we have constructed for ancient civilizations. They imply a level of understanding in mechanics, electrochemistry, cartography, metallurgy, and monumental engineering that our timelines do not account for. They suggest that humanity may have grasped complex scientific and technological principles far earlier than we believe, only for that knowledge to be lost, perhaps through catastrophe or cultural discontinuity, leaving only these perplexing echoes of advanced minds as tantalizing hints of a past far richer and more complex than we are currently willing to accept. These aren't just anomalies, they are potential evidence of lost chapters, of civilizations that perhaps reached unexpected zeniths before fading into the deep silence of time, leaving these scattered wonders for us to ponder. Our journey through the unexplained has so far revealed fragments of astonishing technical prowess and geographical knowledge, hinting at a past far more intricate than we usually imagine. We have seen maps that defy the age of discovery and devices that seem to emerge from an impossible future. But the whispers of forgotten understanding are not confined to machinery or cartography. They are also etched into stone, woven into myth, and sculpted into art, challenging our perceptions of ancient imagination and capability. What if these creative expressions are not merely flights of fancy, but echoes of a world we have lost? Consider the curious artifact known as the Saqqara bird, discovered in an Egyptian tomb in 1898. At first glance, it might appear to be a simple wooden carving of a falcon, its wings outstretched. Yet a closer examination reveals something far more intriguing. Unlike typical bird representations of the era, this sycamore wood object possesses a remarkably modern aerodynamic design. Its wings are not flat, but curved, much like the airfoils of a glider or an aircraft. Its tail, a vertical fin, is distinctly different from the splayed tail feathers of a bird, resembling instead the vertical stabilizer of an airplane. When tested in wind tunnels, replicas of the Saqqara bird have demonstrated surprising stability and lift, suggesting it could indeed have functioned as a glider. We are told that powered flight is a triumph of the modern age, perfected only a little over a century ago. But what then do we make of an artifact from approximately 200 BCE that seems to embody principles of aerodynamics? Is it simply a child's toy, a weather vane, or a ceremonial object whose advanced design is pure coincidence? Or does it hint at a deeper, forgotten knowledge of flight, perhaps even rudimentary gliders, existing thousands of years before the Wright brothers? The Saqqara bird is not an isolated curiosity. Across diverse cultures, we find what some interpret as depictions of ancient flying craft. Small gold figurines from pre-Columbian South America, initially thought to be stylized insects or fish, possess delta wing shapes and vertical stabilizers that bear an uncanny resemblance to modern jet aircraft. Were these simply abstract artistic expressions, or did they encode a memory, a vision, or even a direct observation of machines that soared through the skies in a time beyond our known history? The imagination of ancient peoples, we often assume, was bound by their observable world. But what if their observations extended further, reaching into concepts of flight that we deem exclusive to our era? The very idea is unsettling, for it asks us to reconsider the linearity of technological progress itself. These small, sculpted enigmas, whether from the sands of Egypt or the jungles of the Americas, pose a question. Are we seeing the artistic interpretations of a limited understanding, or the symbolic remnants of a knowledge that once allowed ancient minds to dream of, and perhaps even conquer, the skies? Moving from the possibility of ancient aircraft to the controversial imagery of interstellar travel, we arrive at the ancient Mayan city of Palenque in Mexico. Here, within the Temple of the Inscriptions, lies the tomb of Kinich Janaab Pakal, a powerful ruler who reigned in the 7th century CE. His sarcophagus lid is perhaps one of the most debated pieces of ancient art in the world. Carved from a single massive slab of stone, it depicts Pakal in a reclining or seated position, surrounded by intricate symbols and what many observers, particularly those outside mainstream archaeology, interpret as surprisingly modern-looking elements. The central figure appears to be manipulating controls, with foot pedals beneath him and what looks like an exhaust plume or fiery emission beneath the entire apparatus. He wears what some have called a breathing device or a helmet. His posture, leaning forward with what could be a hand on a lever, strongly evokes the image of a pilot within a cockpit. Mainstream archaeologists offer a different interpretation, describing the scene as Pakal's descent into the underworld, positioned atop a celestial monster. with the imagery representing the tree of life and the transition of the soul. This explanation is rooted in deep understanding of Mayan cosmology and symbolism, yet the visual parallels to modern technology remain striking to many, sparking questions about the true nature of this depiction. Is it possible that within the rich symbolic language of the Maya, there was a way to encode concepts of advanced technology or beings from beyond their world? Could the celestial monster be a metaphorical representation of a machine, and Pakal's descent a symbolic journey into an advanced craft? The Palanque astronaut, as it has been famously dubbed, forces us to confront the limitations of our own interpretive frameworks. Do we impose our modern understanding onto ancient art, or are these ancient artists trying to convey something extraordinary that transcends time and conventional explanation? The lid remains a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest visual interpretation can be the most profound challenge to our accepted history. The idea of advanced flying machines in antiquity is not confined to cryptic carvings. It is also explicitly detailed in some of the oldest and most revered texts in human history. Ancient Indian scriptures, particularly the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, describe fantastical flying objects known as vimanas. These texts, thousands of years old, speak of aerial chariots and palaces that could fly, propelled by unknown forces, capable of reaching great speeds and distances. The descriptions are often vivid, detailing their construction materials, their power sources, and even their use in aerial warfare. The Mahabharata, for instance, recounts a fierce battle where vimanas are deployed, launching powerful weapons and engaging in complex aerial maneuvers. One passage describes a vimana as an iron machine, well knit and smooth, with a discharge of fire from the rear, and another speaks of a chariot, like a lightning moving in the sky carrying a man, and flying by means of sound. Now, these are not mere poetic analogies, they are detailed accounts that resonate with a startling familiarity to descriptions of modern aircraft. Are these simply mythological tales, the imaginative creations of ancient poets and storytellers? Or do they represent a cultural memory, a preserved knowledge of an age when such machines were not merely a dream, but a reality? The sheer consistency and specificity of these descriptions across different ancient Indian texts are compelling. They speak of a technological sophistication that far exceeds what is attributed to those periods. If a civilization possessed the knowledge to build and operate such craft, how did that knowledge disappear so completely from the archaeological record? The vimanas, as described in these ancient scriptures, stand as a testament to the enduring mystery of forgotten technologies, suggesting that perhaps the golden age of flight existed not in our future, but in our distant past. The human impulse to record and depict is ancient, and sometimes those depictions seem to cross the boundaries of their own time. Scattered across various ancient cultures are hieroglyphs and carvings that, to the modern eye, appear to depict technologies or beings that should not have existed until much later. One of the most famous examples is found in the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, where a relief carving shows figures holding what some interpret as oversized light bulbs. Within these bulbs, a serpent-like form, often interpreted as a filament, appears to extend towards a socket. A depiction of a connecting cable seems to lead to a box, interpreted by some as a power source. The official archaeological explanation is that this carving represents a mythological scene, the Jed pillar, a symbol of stability with a serpent representing fertility and the cycle of life. However, for those who seek anomalies, the visual similarity to Crookes tubes or early electrical devices is striking. Could the ancient Egyptians have possessed a secret understanding of electricity or lighting far beyond what the historical record suggests? What if the symbolic language itself was a means to convey complex scientific concepts, cloaked in mythology to be preserved or understood by a select few? Another contentious set of carvings comes from the temple of Seti I at Abydos, Egypt. Here, high on a lintel, some hieroglyphs, particularly after certain weathering or erosion, appear to depict what look remarkably like a helicopter, a submarine, and some form of jet or futuristic aircraft. Mainstream Egyptology attributes this visual effect to a palimpsest, the result of one set of hieroglyphs being carved over another, creating an unintentional composite image. This process, a common practice in ancient Egyptian inscriptions, can indeed create strange superpositions. However, the precision of the apparent modern vehicles in these overlapping images continues to fuel speculation. Why do these particular shapes emerge? Is it merely a trick of the light and erosion, or is there a deeper, more unsettling message embedded in the stone? Beyond Egypt, similar visual puzzles can be found. Petroglyphs in various parts of the world sometimes depict figures that seem to wear spacesuits, helmets, or even possess unusual bodily features that challenge the standard human form. Are these extraterrestrial visitors advanced humans from a lost civilization, or simply the vivid imaginings of ancient shamans and artists? These hieroglyphs and carvings, often dismissed as artistic interpretations or accidental formations, compel us to ask if ancient artists were observers of the extraordinary, leaving behind clues of advanced technologies or beings that existed outside their perceived temporal boundaries. Moving beyond individual artifacts, we find entire sites that challenge our understanding of ancient human societal organization and architectural capabilities, perhaps none more profoundly than Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Discovered in the mid-1990s, this site has fundamentally rewritten the timeline of human civilization. Dated to at least 12,000 years ago, it is thousands of years older than Stonehenge and the earliest known permanent settlements. What makes Göbekli Tepe truly revolutionary is its monumental scale and sophisticated design. Before its discovery, we were taught that complex organized societies capable of monumental architecture only arose after the development of agriculture and settled living. The argument was that only a surplus of food and a stable population could allow for the specialization of labor and the hierarchical organization needed for such grand projects. Yet Göbekli Tepe stands as a powerful counter-narrative. It was built by what were supposedly simple hunter-gatherer communities. These were people living off the land without pottery, without domesticated animals, and without permanent villages as we understand them. Yet, they moved massive T-shaped stone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, over significant distances. They then erected these pillars in meticulously arranged circular enclosures, each intricately carved with detailed depictions of animals, enigmatic symbols, and abstract forms. The sheer organizational complexity required to plan, quarry, transport, and erect these megaliths is staggering for a pre-agricultural society. It suggests a level of social cohesion, leadership, and shared purpose that defies our traditional understanding of hunter-gatherer life. Furthermore, many of these enclosures display sophisticated astronomical alignments, hinting at a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. These alignments were not merely coincidental. They would have required careful observation of the sky over extended periods, suggesting a scientific and intellectual curiosity far beyond basic survival. Göbekli Tepe forces us to ask, how could such a monumental, astronomically aligned complex be built by people who were supposedly at the earlier stages of societal development? Did these simple hunter-gatherers possess a sophisticated knowledge system that we have yet to fully comprehend? Was there an earlier, unknown catalyst that allowed for this burst of architectural and astronomical genius? Or is Göbekli Tepe itself a remnant, a deliberate act of cultural preservation built by the survivors of an even older, more advanced civilization, carrying their knowledge into a new, harsher era? The site stands as an architectural puzzle of unparalleled significance, a testament to a human ingenuity that emerged long before the accepted dawn of civilization. These various artistic and architectural puzzles, from the aerodynamic Saqqara bird to the cosmic imagery of Palenque, the textual accounts of Immerse, the enigmatic hieroglyphs, and the monumental mystery of Göbekli Tepe, all coalesce into a compelling pattern. They are symbolic representations that hint at a forgotten understanding, challenging our linear view of human progress. We often dismiss such anomalies as artistic license, primitive mythology, or optical illusion. But what if these weren't simply the products of unbound imagination? What if they were, in some profound sense, a form of historical record, encoded in a language we are only now beginning to decipher? Ancient cultures often communicated through symbols, parables, and myths. Complex scientific or technological concepts, if they existed in a previous age and were passed down, might have been simplified, abstracted, or personified to survive through generations. A sophisticated flying machine could become a chariot of the gods in a text, or a stylized bird in a carving. Knowledge of electricity could be depicted as a serpent within a sacred pillar. The remnants of a technologically advanced civilization, after a collapse, might find their way into the cultural memory as fantastic tales or allegorical art. The challenge lies in our modern interpretation. We are conditioned to view ancient art and texts through a lens of limited technological capability. Our models of history often preclude the very possibility of advanced knowledge in deep antiquity, making it difficult to even consider alternative interpretation. Yet, if we allow ourselves to step outside these established frameworks, a different picture begins to emerge. A picture where art, architecture, and sacred texts become repositories of forgotten wisdom, whispers from a past that knew more than we can currently admit. These sculpted enigmas compel us to ask, what did our ancestors truly see? What did they know? And what have we forgotten about humanity's grand tapestry? Its many possible threads of ingenuity and understanding that may have unfurled and then vanished, leaving behind only these puzzling, beautiful clues. They stand as silent witnesses, inviting us to look closer, to question deeper, and to ponder the true extent of ancient human capability. We have looked at the intriguing whispers from deep time, the fragments of stone and story that seem to defy our established timelines. We have explored the intricate gears of a device found in the sea, the precise cuts in massive megaliths, and the evocative carvings that hint at technologies we deem impossible for their age. These anomalies, scattered across the globe, challenge the neat, linear story we tell ourselves about humanity's past. They suggest a complexity, a knowledge, and perhaps a history far richer than our textbooks allow. But when such discoveries emerge, they are not always welcomed with open arms. Instead, they often encounter a formidable barrier, the weight of academic consensus. Mainstream archaeology and history, built upon decades of meticulous research and established paradigms, tends to view these out-of-place artifacts with deep skepticism. This is not necessarily a flaw in the scientific method, but an inherent aspect of how knowledge is built and defended. Science, by its very nature, demands extraordinary proof for extraordinary claims. And an artifact that suggests a high civilization existed tens of thousands of years before the accepted timeline is, indeed, an extraordinary claim. The established frameworks of history have been carefully constructed, layer by layer over centuries. These models provide a coherent narrative, tracing humanity's progression from simple hunter-gatherers to complex agricultural societies, then to cities and empires. Each new discovery is typically interpreted within this existing structure. When something appears that does not fit, a tool that seems too advanced, a map depicting lands unknown, it creates a cognitive dissonance. Rather than immediately overturning the entire framework, the natural inclination is to find ways to reconcile the anomaly with the existing understanding. How are these puzzling finds often handled? Many are dismissed as misidentifications. A carved stone with unusual symmetry might be attributed to natural erosion. A metallic object found in an ancient stratum could be explained as a later intrusion, perhaps dropped down a fissure or a burrowing animal's hole. The complex astronomical device found in a Greek shipwreck, for example, while now widely accepted, faced initial skepticism and spent decades being studied before its true nature was fully acknowledged. Its sophistication was so far beyond what was expected for its era that it strained belief. Other artifacts are reinterpreted. The figures in ancient art that some see as representations of flying machines or advanced technology are instead explained as symbolic, mythological, or metaphorical depictions. What appears to be an astronaut on a sarcophagus lid becomes a king descending into the underworld, adorned with symbolic imagery. What looks like a depiction of an aircraft is reclassified as a stylized fish or bird. These reinterpretations often hold a logical consistency within the prevailing worldview, making them easier to accept than radical shifts in understanding. The human mind seeks patterns, and if a pattern exists within the established narrative, it tends to be preferred. The challenges of dating and context also play a significant role in resisting these anomalies. Many out-of-place artifacts lack the pristine, undeniable context that archaeologists prefer. Sometimes an object is found by an amateur, its exact location and surrounding stratigraphy not meticulously recorded. This immediately casts doubt on its authenticity and age. Even when found professionally, the dating of a layer of rock or sediment can be complex, relying on geological processes that themselves are subject to interpretation. If an artifact is found in a layer millions of years old but appears to be of human manufacture, the default assumption is that the object is not as old as the layer, or that the layer's dating is flawed. The ambiguity in many cases becomes a reason for dismissal rather than a call for deeper investigation into the anomaly itself. Consider the argument of absence of evidence. This is a core principle in scientific thought. If there is no evidence for something, we cannot assume its existence. In archaeology, this often translates to, if we haven't found cities, writing, or widespread advanced tools from 50,000 years ago, then no such civilization existed. But this is a subtle trap, distinct from the evidence of absence. The lack of a specific type of evidence, especially from vast stretches of deep time, does not automatically mean that phenomena never occurred. It could simply mean that the evidence has been destroyed, buried, or not yet found. The Earth is not a museum that preserves everything in neat exhibits. It is a restless, dynamic planet, constantly reshaping its surface. Over tens of thousands of years, entire cities can vanish beneath soil, sand, or sea. Wood rots, metal corrodes, and even stone buildings crumble under the relentless forces of erosion, geological shifts, and changing climates. If civilizations existed in those forgotten eras, their material traces might be so few, so fragmented, or so deeply buried that finding them would be an act of immense luck. Not a guaranteed outcome of conventional archaeological methods. The silence of the deep past, therefore, may not be an empty void, but a profound testament to the Earth's capacity to erase. The limitations of conventional historical frameworks become particularly apparent when confronted with these persistent anomalies. Our current understanding often operates on a model of steady, linear progress, with a clear origin point for civilization. This model struggles to accommodate information that suggests bursts of high knowledge, then disappearance, only to be followed by another independent rise. It is difficult for a framework built on gradual evolution to digest evidence that implies a more cyclical or even catastrophic pattern of human development. For instance, the sudden appearance of complex structures like Göbekli Tepe, thousands of years before agriculture was thought to enable such organized efforts, stretches the boundaries of the accepted narrative. Rather than allowing for a completely different kind of society, there is an effort to push back the date of agriculture, or to define these hunter-gatherers in a new, more complex way, still within the existing linear progression. This resistance is not born of malice, but of the inherent cultural and institutional inertia within any established field. Academic careers are built on accepted theories, peer-reviewed publications, and the careful accumulation of evidence within a defined paradigm. To challenge the fundamental tenets of that paradigm can be professionally risky. It means questioning the work of generations of scholars, potentially invalidating one's own research, and venturing into territory that is often met with suspicion. Textbooks, university curricula, and funding bodies are all invested in maintaining a coherent narrative. A paradigm shift is not just about new evidence. It is about a fundamental rethinking that can shake the foundations of an entire discipline. Imagine the immense shift required to accept that highly advanced civilizations existed many thousands of years before Sumer or Egypt. It would necessitate a complete rewriting of human history, a re-evaluation of every archaeological site, and a profound questioning of our place in the timeline of the planet. Such a shift would be resisted not just by individual scholars, but by the entire intellectual apparatus that supports the current understanding. It's a testament to the human need for order and coherence in our understanding of the past. Yet, this inherent caution, while valuable in preventing unsubstantiated claims, can also blind us to genuinely anomalous data. The history of science is replete with examples of ideas once ridiculed that later became accepted truths. Continental drift, for example, was initially dismissed as impossible by geologists who could not conceive of a mechanism for continents to move. It took decades and a wealth of new evidence before plate tectonics fundamentally reshaped our understanding of the Earth. Could the same be true for the idea of forgotten civilizations? When we approach these anomalies, we are not necessarily asking for immediate acceptance of a radical new theory. Instead, we are asking for an open mind, for a willingness to consider that the story we have may be incomplete, or perhaps even fundamentally flawed in some of its assumptions. The scattered fragments we have discussed, the ancient mechanisms, the impossible maps, the inexplicable precision of forgotten stonework, do not offer a complete alternative history, but they serve as persistent whispers challenging the silence and urging us to listen more closely. The weight of consensus, while providing stability, also creates a kind of intellectual gravity, making it difficult for new ideas, especially those that defy established norms, to rise. It favors explanations that fit rather than those that disrupt. But perhaps true progress in understanding our past lies not in defending the current narrative at all costs, but in allowing ourselves to be guided by the evidence, even when that evidence leads us down paths we did not expect, towards a history far more mysterious and magnificent than we have dared to imagine. The anomalies themselves are not proof of a fully formed alternative history, but they are potent indicators that the established history, in its current form, may be missing significant chapters, and in that uncertainty lies the greatest possibility for discovery. But what if the resistance we encounter, the comfortable frameworks that dismiss these anomalies, are simply too narrow? What if the fragments we have gathered, those puzzling objects that refuse to fit, are not exceptions to a rule, but whispers of a far grander story? Perhaps the time has come to shift our gaze, to look beyond the strict confines of established history and consider a possibility that feels both unsettling and profoundly compelling: the lost civilization hypothesis. This is not to suggest fantasy, but to engage in a form of intellectual archaeology, digging beneath the layers of accepted narratives to unearth a different potential past. Imagine if humanity's journey has not been a single, unbroken line of upward progress, but a series of grand endeavors, each reaching impressive heights, only to be swept away, leaving us to begin again. The out-of-place artifacts, these baffling objects that defy their timelines, suddenly cease to be isolated curiosities. Instead, they become clues, silent witnesses to worlds long vanished, yet somehow still remembered. This perspective invites us to explore theories of cyclical history, where knowledge and societal complexity rise, flourish, and then inevitably recede. Just as seasons turn, or as tides advance and retreat, so too might the ebb and flow of human civilization have occurred over immense stretches of time. It is a rhythm that echoes in the very nature of our planet, which, as we know, has been shaped by cycles of dramatic change. If the Earth itself moves in rhythms of destruction and renewal, why should human culture be exempt? Civilizations like natural landscapes may bloom and fade, their legacies buried under the weight of millennia. In this cyclical view, the artifacts we find, the precise mechanics, the global maps, the intricate carvings, are not sudden, inexplicable flashes of genius. They are fragments, they are echoes, they are perhaps the faint, lingering memories of skills and knowledge passed down, or more profoundly, rediscovered. Think of them not as first inventions but as reawakenings. A civilization, rising from the ashes of a previous age, might stumble upon a preserved technique or a forgotten piece of lore and begin to reverse engineer its way back to earlier achievements. The Antikythera mechanism, with its unparalleled complexity, would then not be an isolated miracle, but a surviving testament to an understanding that once existed more broadly. The impossible accuracy of ancient maps, depicting continents before their official discovery or coastlines before the ice receded, might be copies of copies, fragments of cartographic knowledge inherited from explorers of an earlier, lost world. This reinterpretation holds profound implications for our understanding of human origins, migration, and development. If advanced cultures existed tens or even hundreds of thousands of years ago, the conventional timeline of humanity's spread and progress appears almost too short, too simple. It suggests that our ancestors were not merely simple hunter-gatherers waiting for a sudden spark of genius to ignite agriculture and cities. Instead, they may have been inheritors, survivors, rebuilding from a state of reduced knowledge after some cataclysmic event. This cyclical model challenges the idea that major innovations like writing or complex engineering were invented only once. Perhaps they were invented, lost, and then reinvented across different eras, each time shaped by the unique conditions of their age. Consider the human story across the continents. If vast stretches of time were marked by advanced civilizations, their influence would not be confined to a single river valley or a specific landmass. The striking similarities in mythical narratives across disparate cultures, tales of global floods, of fire from the sky, of a world reset, might not be mere coincidence, but fragmented memories of shared experiences on a global scale. This suggests a far more interconnected ancient past than we currently acknowledge, a tapestry woven with threads of forgotten knowledge and shared catastrophe. Perhaps the builders of the precise structures at Pumapunku or the astronomical observatories of ancient sites were not isolated geniuses, but part of a global tradition linked by a common, yet now forgotten, heritage. The challenge is to connect these disparate artifacts, these isolated whispers, and begin to paint a cohesive, albeit speculative, picture of a more complex ancient past. What if the apparent sudden leaps in human, technological and cultural development, so puzzling in a linear narrative, are actually moments of recovery? A period of quiescence where humanity rebuilds from a simpler state is then followed by a creative explosion as knowledge is rediscovered, reapplied, and adapted to a new era. This isn't a leap from nothing, but a reawakening, fueled by the echoes of what came before. The rapid appearance of agriculture across multiple continents, or the sudden emergence of sophisticated urban centers with writing and monumental architecture, could be seen not as singular inventions, but as a collective societal rediscovery of previously lost arts. This shift in perspective is not merely academic, it fundamentally alters our self-perception. We move from a linear view of progress, where we stand at the peak of an ever-ascending climb, to one of recurring patterns and forgotten achievements. It implies humility. What we consider groundbreaking today might have been understood, utilized, and then lost countless times before. The very concept of progress becomes less about a steady upward march and more about a repeating dance, a cosmic waltz of creation and oblivion. Each time, humanity, or perhaps other advanced species, rose to challenge the unknown, built wonders, expanded knowledge, and then, for reasons we can only guess at, receded, leaving behind only the faintest of imprints. The lost civilization hypothesis, therefore, is not an attempt to replace one rigid dogma with another. Rather, it is an invitation to embrace the unknown, to allow for a fluidity in our understanding of history that better accommodates the perplexing evidence. It offers a framework where the precise carvings of a Göbekli Tepe, defying the accepted capabilities of hunter-gatherers, make a different kind of sense. They are not out of place. They are simply out of time in our current understanding. They are the lingering presence of a deeper past. If we allow for the possibility of these hidden layers, the grand tapestry of humanity's journey stretches back further than we currently imagine, richer and more complex than any single linear narrative can encompass. The artifacts, those strange and wonderful objects that refuse to fit, become not just enigmas but guiding lights piercing through the veil of forgotten ages. They urge us to reconsider our place in time, reminding us that we may be but one chapter in an ancient, ongoing story, a story of repeated beginnings and endings, of knowledge gained and then lost, only to be rediscovered again in the slow, powerful rhythm of existence. This is the profound implication of these anomalies. They don't just challenge individual facts. They challenge the very structure of our historical imagination. They ask us to dream of a past that is cyclical, resilient, and far more mysterious than we have dared to believe. If these fragmented whispers from deep time hold true, if they are indeed remnants of civilizations lost to the currents of ages, then their meaning extends far beyond simple curiosity. They offer us profound insights, not just into the past, but into the very nature of our present and perhaps our future. The first lesson these objects deliver is a stark reminder of the fragility of civilization itself and the impermanence of even the most profound knowledge. We tend to build our world with a sense of lasting permanence, creating structures and systems that we imagine will endure for millennia. Yet, the scattered artifacts we have explored, the precise mechanisms, the advanced cartography, the enigmatic artistry, suggest that even highly sophisticated societies can vanish, their achievements dissolving into the mists of time. Imagine how much complex understanding, how many intricate skills, how much profound wisdom could be lost when a civilization declines or is swept away. We see how quickly our own digital information can become obsolete, how fragile our interconnected systems are. These ancient anomalies serve as a silent echo, reminding us that knowledge, like a delicate flame, can be extinguished, leaving only cold ash where brilliant light once shone. Our intricate global networks, our towering cities, our accumulated sciences, all could one day be reduced to puzzling fragments, waiting for a future age to wonder at their origin. This leads directly to the challenge these artifacts pose to our deeply ingrained sense of human exceptionalism and our linear perception of progress. For generations, we have embraced a narrative where humanity began in simplicity, slowly, steadily, ascending a ladder of technological and cultural advancement, culminating in our modern era. The out-of-place objects, however, disrupt this comfortable story. They suggest that our journey may not be a continuous, unbroken climb, but rather a series of ascents and descents, peaks and valleys across vast stretches of time. If advanced knowledge existed before our accepted timeline, then we are not necessarily the first, nor perhaps the most advanced, to walk this path. It forces us to reconsider whether we stand at the true pinnacle of innovation, or merely upon the most recent high point in a much longer, more complex wave. This perspective invites a profound humility, suggesting that our current achievements, while remarkable, may be rediscoveries or echoes of former eras, rather than unique and unprecedented leaps. The unfolding riddle of these artifacts therefore calls for an essential quality: open-mindedness in the ongoing quest for historical truth. The established frameworks of archaeology and history have served us well, meticulously piecing together the past from the evidence at hand. Yet, When confronted with objects that simply do not fit, a rigid adherence to existing paradigms can blind us to larger possibilities. The fragments we find, the anomalies that challenge our assumptions, ask us to be flexible, to question, and to consider narratives beyond the conventional. It is not about abandoning scientific rigor, but about expanding the scope of our inquiry, allowing for the possibility that our understanding is incomplete, and that truth can reside in the uncomfortable spaces where evidence defies easy explanation. Humility, in this context, means acknowledging the vastness of time and the inherent limitations of our current knowledge, leaving room for the unexpected. Furthermore, the very existence of these perplexing artifacts underscores the immense potential for future discoveries to further rewrite our understanding of the past. What we have uncovered so far may be just the tip of a submerged iceberg. Vast swathes of our planet remain unexplored. The deep oceans, the ice-covered continents, the buried layers beneath deserts and ancient cities. Each new excavation, each technological advancement in remote sensing, each careful re-examination of forgotten collections carries the potential to unearth another fragment, another puzzle piece that recontextualizes everything we thought we knew. The story of humanity is far from complete, and its most astonishing chapters may still lie hidden, waiting for the right moment, the right tool, or the right mind to bring them to light. We are only beginning to scratch the surface of deep time, and with every scratch, the outline of a more intricate history takes shape. This leads us to contemplate the profound, cyclical nature of human endeavor and the possibility of forgotten futures. If civilizations have risen, flourished, and then faded, leaving behind only tantalizing clues, it suggests a pattern to human experience. Each ascent perhaps leads to a zenith, followed by a decline, a period of loss, and then a slow re-emergence. Our own future, seen through this lens, might not be a perpetual upward trajectory, but another turn in a grand, repeating cycle. This idea does not diminish our present, but rather places it within a vast, echoing continuum. It implies that the challenges and triumphs we face today may mirror those of forgotten ages, and that our current world, for all its complexity, could one day become another layer in the silent stratigraphic record, awaiting rediscovery by future beings. Ultimately, these unexplained artifacts encourage a deeper engagement with the enigmatic whispers from deep time. They are not merely curiosities, they are invitations to wonder, to expand our imaginations, and to embrace the rich, complex tapestry of a past we are only beginning to comprehend. The quiet suggestions of forgotten mastery, of vanished knowledge, of a humanity far older and more intricate than we usually perceive, ask us to look beyond the immediate and the obvious. They implore us to listen to the faint echoes from ages past, to honor the possibility that truth is often stranger and grander than our accepted narratives allow. As we continue our quest, these silent stones, these ancient maps, these perplexing devices stand as eternal questions, guiding us toward a more complete and awe-inspiring understanding of who we are and who we once might have been.